is the M&M Planet Podcast, episode 46. I'm your host, Joel Lambert. Thank you for joining me on this never-ending quest to figure out how to teach better. Today on the podcast is Jeff McManus. Now, Jeff has a number of different titles. First, he is the Director of Landscape Services at the University of Mississippi. So if you've ever been to the University of Mississippi or seen it, usually commercial breaks from a University of Mississippi football game, you'll see like some views of the landscape, views of the Grove, and you just see like, that's a beautiful campus. And guess what? A lot of people agree with you. The University of Mississippi's campus has over and over again been called the most beautiful campus by USA Today, Newsweek, and Princeton Review. What Jeff and his team has been able to accomplish in just the shape, the beauty, the everything that they've done with the landscaping is just truly remarkable. So Jeff is in charge of that group, and no, he would just give all the accolades to them. But I mean, he has been cultivating that group for many, many years, way beyond when I first arrived here. And we'll talk about that in the podcast episode. Jeff is also the head of the Jeff McManus Group, which helps other organizations cultivate great leaders. And also Jeff is an author. He has authored the book, Growing Leaders into Leaders, Leadership Lessons from the Ground Level, which is going to be the basis of our conversation today on the podcast. That book captures some of the story and a lot of lessons that Jeff has learned and taught in his role cultivating the most beautiful campus. So I'm excited for that conversation. I've gotten to know Jeff over the past couple years, and excited to share some of his expertise and some of the stories behind his leadership. And so, but before we jump into the conversation with Jeff, just a quick disclaimer: in no way will we be able to communicate the whole value of Jeff's book. And even if we did, it would be from our perspective. In other words, you know what's coming. If you like what you hear, go get the book for yourself. Links to purchase the book can be found at amazonplanet.com/episode 46, or seek it out wherever you buy high-quality books like this one. If possible, try to support your local bookseller. I know Jeff would agree with that, like Square Books here in Oxford, Mississippi. So without further delay, here is my conversation with Jeff McManus. Jeff McManus, thank you for joining me on the M&M Planet Podcast. How are you?
Hey, Joel. Thanks for having me. I am doing great today. Super excited to be with you.
Oh, thank you so much. And hey, I mean, I know your work because I get to see your work when I go to work, but can you take a quick moment to introduce folks to who you are and what you do?
Well, Joel, I like to say that I grow things. I grow plants, and I grow landscapes and flowers. But what I really do is grow people. And I like to grow people who are growing plants and flowers. And that's what I do. We create the most beautiful campus in the world. I just try not to get in the way. My job's to help fertilize people, water people, and grow people. That is what I do. I do very little with plants, but I really try to grow our people.
Yeah, I mean, I think anyone who's ever stepped foot on the University of Mississippi's campus and seen the landscape and seen just the beauty that exists in this space is just overwhelmed. I think at times, especially now when we have all the flowers growing and just everything is in tip-top shape, and it's a testament to you and your team and all that you do, and it's an amazing place to walk to work. Let's just say that.
Thank you. We have a great team. We're well understaffed, as most university grounds and landscape people are, but they absolutely make the magic happen. Joel, you probably know this, but there's a study out there that says that 62% of prospective college students will decide in the first few minutes if they're coming to the university based on the appearance. Mm-hmm. And so we've only got a few minutes to capture the hearts. And I know you're in academia world, so that may crush your spirit there. So I don't mean to, but I think it adds to what you all do, because if you don't have the credibility on the inside in the classrooms, they're not going to be there in the first place. But it's when they come and experience, they already know the academics are there, but now they experience the bones, so to speak, the facilities. And do they make you feel like you're at home, or this is where I want to be? So that's what we tell our folks is they're not just landscaping, they're helping create this culture where people can come and learn.
Absolutely. I mean, and I'll tell you, if I have, I'm in charge of the doctoral program in the Department of Teacher Education. If I've got a doctoral student that's going to come for a visit, and I know it hasn't been as frequent now during a global pandemic, but if they are going to come, I take them up Guyton Hall, take them through the back first, then walk down the front steps, and they see down Magnolia, down to Paris Yates Chapel, and all the magnolia trees are on the sides, and like they got the tennis stadium on right, and it's just like, here's where we get to work, and there's a library up ahead, and it's just like, whoa, that's kind of amazing, kind of an amazing picture to get them to see, like, hey, I could be working and learning here in this amazing space. And we haven't even gotten to the Grove yet. We haven't even walked to the Grove yet.
Yeah, you're literally on one end of the campus, but it's a showcase, and you're smart to bring them up, because that we intentionally made that as you come up that staircase from the back side, especially when the azaleas are blooming. Mm-hmm. So in April, it is a showcase. If you're looking down, you look over the Chancellor's Yard with all those blooms and flowers. I took some amazing pictures up there this spring. But yes, I mean, we want you and the people in your areas to be able to be proud of it. And then we want you to be able to capture the hearts of those people who are coming and say, man, just think, this is what you're going to have to look at every day, right? Yeah. This beautiful campus, right? So that oasis. So that's what we do. Yeah.
I mean, and so you have your team, but how did you get into this position, Jeff?
Well, that's interesting. Well, I got here due to failure. Okay. So I failed classes really well. So you'll appreciate this being a prof and everything. So I was taking marketing. I was a marketing major, and I was also working at my brother's garden center, some part-time during the summer. And I realized I needed to learn some plant names. So while I'm taking marketing, I'm also over here taking some horticulture classes. Mm-hmm. I never even really thought about horticulture or anything. Well, as Providence would have it, I did not do well in marketing. Matter of fact, Joel, I failed the class, which really got my attention. And then when I went through business calculus, well, I was able to fail it too, Joel. So I saw a pattern there that wasn't connecting with me. But Joel, I was doing great in horticulture. The sciences were much more, I had to do the chemistry. So I ended up doing that part of them and got offered a couple of jobs, just like all my fellow graduates, and ended up in Florida for a couple of years. And so after a while, University of Mississippi was looking for someone to take their secret weapon, their landscaping, to the next level. And I just happened to be picked for that, and really, really honored that I was. It's been a ride. That's been 21 years ago. I've been here now 21 years.
And hired by Chancellor Kyatt, right?
That's right. One of the best. He's always jokingly have been accused of making Ole Miss like his front yard and just keeping it manicured and crisp. And he actually reached out to me and talked to me before he even created the position, which was kind of fun. And then I had to apply for the position, but he was looking for someone. And that tells all of us that leaders are looking for talent. They're looking for people they can put in positions. They're looking for that. And just because it's not out there on that job's not listed doesn't mean that it's not there. Mm-hmm. And so, my little takeaway was, whatever you're doing right now, just do it really good, be the best at it, and get that reputation. And that's how I got the phone call. I was pretty good in the resort business. And so had a pretty good reputation. We'd won some national recognition. And so that credibility helped carry over, because I wasn't the smartest guy. I've already told you, I wasn't the smartest guy in the world, but I do know how to do what I'm doing. So I've excelled in this world.
Yeah. And so then, taking that excellence and you captured it in a book, Growing Weeders into Leaders, Leadership Lessons from the Ground Level. I like all that there from the ground level. But how did that book come to be, Jeff?
Well, it was telling our story, our people, how a lot of our folks who had given up really on they were just coming to work, punching the clock, surviving. So like so many times you see in the workplace, they were just looking for the paycheck. The paycheck means a lot when you really hate your job. And we saw those attitudes change and shift, and people begin to really want to be better at their job. They wanted to learn the plants. They wanted to learn how to do things. And when we saw that, we felt like, man, this is the gasoline to put on that little fire that's here. And the program turned around. So it's really about our people. And so people have asked me, well, how did you do such a turnaround? How did you go from really the last place in landscaping to one of the national recognized in the world? And I just wrote the book to sort of just share how we did that. It's a short read. It's a 2-hour read book. It's just the highlights of what we tried to do with our staff. Not everybody bought in. Not everybody does. Right. But we changed the culture and and a lot of our folks have gone on to do some really great things just being here.
Yeah, well, even too, before we even started recording this, just talking about, we just had 2 graduations, and I thought, well, maybe that's kind of a stressful place. And it's like, you talked about your team being so proactive, and so they've got this down, that, and we didn't have an outdoor ceremony, but still, that the fact that this, wanting your campus to look the best, that it's already there. Like they know what to do. They know how to present this place in a way that is always impressive, not just on, specific weekends. So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, so you got to play at that high level daily, because think about it, Joel, on average, 25 new people will visit the campus every day. So you got to be on, it's pretty much showtime every day. It's open 365. You can drive through every day of the year, anytime. And so that's the mindset. And we talk a lot about where people are going to be taking pictures. Mm-hmm. We want to create those memories, but we also need those areas to always look good. And so if they take a picture and the area looks bad, that's going to be a bad reflection on the university and us. So it's showtime, but it's amazing once you get out in front of it and you have people who are engaged, who have an eye for detail. They're paying attention. They're proactive. They're productive. Those things just really start adding up to where it gets momentum to things. You don't need as many people as you think you do to do what you're doing, because we're doing 1,000 acres with about 30 people. So it's pretty intense.
Yeah. So let's get into it. Let's get in a little bit and talking about the book and some lessons learned. And I know you haven't written the book, and maybe there's sort of self-reflection sort of lessons that have come up, but what were some learnings you had in either writing the book or even lessons that you want to highlight from the book?
I think the first thing that jumps out to me is the curse of knowledge. Once you know something, you think everybody else knows it, and you kind of just feel like everybody should already get it. I mean, you're a teacher. I mean, you're a professor. You know a lot of technical part, but every semester you're bringing in new people who don't know.
That's right.
And it's harder. And so when I'm writing the book, it's almost like, well, yeah, we're doing this and we're doing this, and people are sort of like looking at you going like, what do you mean you're doing this? Like, for example, we'll slow down once a month and just watch a video, and then we'll just all reflect on that video with our team. We'll do it in small groups. I don't know what you guys do that call that, it's that experimental reflection, but I'm wanting my team to slow down and process some good data. Maybe it's a teaching on how to be adaptable. Mm-hmm. And what does that mean? It's a 10 or 15 minutes. And then I'll facilitate questions, because I want them to reflect on it. And I want them to hear each other talk about it. And that builds team unity. It builds that common goal of what we're doing, what we're going through. And they're hearing themselves say it. It's not me up front, saying these things. It's them processing it. So that becomes the buy-in. That becomes the part where if they're saying it, there's that belief. And that's what I'm trying to capture, is their belief. So writing the book, I'm thinking this is kind of common. Then I realize after I've written the book that this is not common, that people really aren't going for employees' beliefs. They just want employees to get results. Well, the key to get results is to get beliefs. If you can get them to believe in what you're doing is important, they may never fall in love with what they're doing, but they're going to believe it enough that it's important, that they're going to do a good job, that they care, they have that pride of ownership. So that was an eye opener for me after writing the book.
Well, how amazing is that, Jeff? Just that example you just shared of, we're going to take time away from the landscape, right? Like probably the number one activity that they're going to be doing. And we're going to come together, and we're going, and you're sending a message that, there's value in investing in this time into you, that we believe that you can get better. And this is maybe an experience to do that message that you send, and showing them that this time is valuable for us to invest in you as people. And then that makes you better when we go back out into the landscape. I mean, it's an amazing message that you're sending.
Well, I had a guy come in my office and have an open door policy for any of my team. And he came in and he sat down and he goes, "Hey, can I close the door?" I said, "Sure."
Mm.
So he's talking. He goes, "I just want to let you know, when we've been doing this for probably about 3 years." And he goes, "I just want you to know this." And we call it leader to leader. He goes, "Leader to leader has really changed us." He goes, "We're working better. We're not arguing. We just seem to be getting along together really well." And then he just got quiet. He got silent and his head bowed. And I didn't know what happened. I was just kind of watching. And he kind of looks up at me. He's got tears in his eyes. And he goes, "But I want to tell you on a personal level," he goes, "this has saved my marriage."
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going, "Really?" And it didn't really surprise me, but it did. And it's like, okay. He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "I used to think my wife was the problem, right?" And that's common. We always think the other person's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a self-awareness that he was getting in this group of he was getting to see some of his blind spots. He was getting to feel that and see that. And he realized he was getting ready to divorce his wife because he thought she was the problem. Well, I had the guy, this guy did exceptionally well. He's one of our success stories. He's gone on to another department, making more money, doing super great. But I talked to him about a year ago. This is probably been now about 8 years since that first conversation. And I was like, "How's your marriage?" And great marriage. They're doing well. And it was just nice to know that leader to leader program not only helped our team, but it helped him at home. Those
Mm-hmm.
things transferred home and were able to have application there as well.
That's awesome. That's wonderful. I mean, again, like that investment within the people, as that message comes out, pretty ringing true. That's definitely there. What other learnings have you had, Jeff?
Not everybody wants to be a leader. Not everybody. I guess I grew up with it. I just always wanted to be a leader, right? It just kind of goes back. I think back in my school days, I never had a problem being a leader. Playing sports outside, pickup games, I'd be the one barking out the whatever, but yet I'm still an introvert person, but I don't mind being a leader. And I found as I'm working with our team that a lot of our guys really don't want to be the person in charge, but they do want to have a say in what we're doing. And so that was eye-opening, that they want to be valued. They want to be a part of it, even participate in our standards, like what's the quality we expect. But they don't want to be in charge. They don't want to be that person that has to, make the hard decisions.
Yeah.
So that was a learning process for me, is how do you get that, but yet you're not going to be in charge. And a lot of that is just discussion and having good discussions with teams and facilitating that. But it's so easy to get into a work day of getting your list done, get this done, and not facilitate conversation. That's the first thing that gets thrown out when you're busy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the thing that stands out to me there is like, I always go back to when we were talking to these new teachers coming in, and we asked them, like, what is it like when you think about what was a teacher when you were like a real kid or a real little kid? And when you looked at, like, what is the image of a teacher? It's someone that's standing up front and telling people what to do a lot of times, or telling them, here's how you do something. And versus the best way for, teaching to occur is for there to be some struggle, to be some sort of, you give them an activity and you facilitate an activity and helping them and allow them to sort of figure things out. But so there's this balance of, you can't completely just tell them what to do and then they're not thinking about it. They're just, miming whatever you've done, versus, you can't just let them be completely free and then they're completely lost. It's this balance in between. You see, it sounds like that same thing where, no, I don't want to be the leader, but I still want to have a voice in what happens. And so you gotta deal with that tension of it's not one or the other. It's a little bit of both at the same time.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, can I tell my favorite teacher story though?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
So big reason, and I didn't really share this a while ago, but after I had, pretty much bombed out of business school, not doing well, and I was in horticulture school, one of the things that really influenced me is I had a professor, Dr. Harry Ponder, who taught plants, and he was teaching evergreens. So we were going out and looking at hollies and azaleas and anything that's an evergreen. And this guy knew the name of everything, Joel. I mean, he knew the scientific name, he knew the common names. And then it was just like walking around with an encyclopedia, but a person who had practical experience. So he would give us case studies and we would just learn. It was just fascinating. And we would come into his classroom and we'd be waiting, and he would come in and he would be there waiting on us either way. And he would always acknowledge every person. He would acknowledge, oh, there's Jeff McManus from Douglasville, Georgia. And, and it's just, I didn't realize what an impact this guy was making on me. And what I reflected on probably 10 years ago, I graduated in 88, long time ago, is this guy, he knew all the plant names, but the name that apparently meant the most that he knew was my name. Is that he took the time to know my name, but then he was excited to see not only me, but everybody. And I don't know if he I think he loves teaching. Dr. Ponder did. He's now retired. He taught for 41 years.
Oh, yeah.
But he loved people. Mm-hmm. And, people can let you down. We just know that people let you down. They're going to do stuff. But he didn't lose that passion to invest in people. He's the big reason I ended up at Ole Miss, is because I told him I was ready to leave South Florida. And if you hear anything that comes up, let me know. I'd love something else. And the chancellor here at Ole Miss, Dr. Kayak, called Auburn looking for someone. And I was on the short list. Those relationships, the people who care about you. Now, he had hundreds, thousands of students, but yet he took the time. I mean, obviously he had a gift. He knew all those plant names. He knew everybody's name. That's remarkable. But I think it was just the enthusiasm that he had to engage with people and even the plants that really made it special to me. So that's my teacher story. That's the way I try to teach now. When I teach to my people, is I encourage them. I want them to get it right. I want them, and if they miss it, I don't embarrass them. Right? I just, hey, let's go on to something else, but I always want them to be successful.
That's awesome. I mean, we kind of go through this set of practices. I say, like, these are not just for good teaching, but just good practices in general. But that whole idea of building relationships. If we're always building relationships, then you're going to be better off, right? And like either in teaching, even if it's a student that might be rejecting your content knowledge, they might still want to talk to you about how the Packers are doing, me being a Packer fan, right? Or whatever like activity they were doing. They might be willing to talk to you about that. So building that relationship so that possibly in the future, maybe that content can be disseminated in a good way. But at least we're always building those relationships. And like, it sounds like, Dr. Ponder had a way of doing that with his students and that enthusiasm for the content.
It's hard too for teachers, I know.
Yeah. So one thing that I have, because I know that you're not the chancellor of the university, and there have been a couple different chancellors since in your tenure here. How do you go about communicating? So Dr. Kayak obviously knew the importance of the landscape and all, and you have all the statistics about how important it is about this environment that you're creating for the university. How is it when you're being led from up above? Like, how do you communicate some of those things and to make sure that they see the importance of what you do?
I'm fortunate now that the momentum has shifted now. The expectation is, why aren't we landscaping? Whereas when I first came here, the question was, why are we landscaping? Why are we putting the money in it? So I'm glad that it's tipped now to the other way, where we've won. I think the national attention, everybody likes to be associated with a champion.
That's right.
We all do. Look at us. We wear our hats, we wear memorabilia, whatever it is, our schools, we're proud of them. And I think that's true with even landscaping. Maybe we're not winning football national championships, but we've won something, right? And we look for that. We always look for those. And it's been an easier sell. What I've got 2 new bosses now, and what I have to do is go in still with the attitude of learning. And I do need to be the authority. And I have had to learn that, Joel, is that I need to bring information that helps them make decisions. Don't tell them what to do, but to help them and frame it correctly. So it's my job to make sure they know those statistics. And if they want to change and say, hey, we're going to cut the budget, we're going to do this, my objective is to let them know what's going to happen on that. Now, I've been fortunate. I haven't had to go down that road. We've got some people who've embraced it. So our biggest selling point, though, Joel, our best selling point, besides the product itself, you see the results every day when you walk in it, is our people. You just don't see our people standing around. They're usually engaged, highly, moving. They're not running, right? But they're moving. And that comes back to capturing belief, right? Hopefully we hire people who will believe in what we do, but we want them to know that what they do is important. We may be recruiting the next person who cures cancer here. And in a small way, we may help, be a part of that solution. Yeah. There's not many jobs that you can tie that to. Not many. I just read an email that we got from a beautiful lady here who's retired, and she does a paragraph of love and affection about the landscaping. Well, I took that and read that to our team in our meeting this morning. And then I put it up on the wall. Why? I mean, how do you know when somebody needs encouragement? Because they're breathing, right? And so they needed encouragement. They need to hear that. They need to know that they matter here on campus. And so we feel like in a small way, we're helping change lives. And sometimes that drives people. Sometimes it doesn't. I find that younger people want to have a bigger purpose in life. Sometimes we want to go out and save the world. Sometimes you can do that through landscaping. If you truly believe what you're doing is important, you're helping recruit people. You're maybe not the one who's going to go out and cure cancer, but maybe that scientist is. But, Joel, we've recruited people who've been the head of NASA here before, right? We've recruited national bestsellers like, what's that guy, John Gresham, maybe, who came here. So maybe in a small way, we've influenced him as well. So, and then, of course, there's always the football in sports. And so we always want to help be a part of that recruiting as well.
Absolutely. And I know for me, like the story that I really get a kick out of is when you're talking about walking around with Chancellor Kayat and, he's, not taking two steps outside and, he sees a piece of litter and going ahead and picking it up and being like, sending a message, one that everyone's a part of this, right? That it's not just the landscape service that's in charge of making sure there's beautiful, like we all have a part in this. And even from me, the person who's at the top of the chain is going to be bending over and picking up that's a great message that what do we do as someone who's, he taught you a lot by just doing that small movement, right? That engaging in that practice.
Yeah, that's so true. And Joel, it's probably even influenced you. I wouldn't be surprised if you haven't picked up a piece of paper.
Yes, I have.
On this campaign. You see, but that influenced you because you knew from the top level, we're all bought in.
Yeah.
That's huge. I mean, you don't have to say a word. A college student sees you doing it, Joel. They're saying, "Oh, well, there goes my professor. He's picking up. Well, he's bought in too." So it affects us all, and we call that. We affectionately call that weeding by example, right? Instead of leading by example, because Chancellor Kayat would pull weeds too if he saw them. And so he said, "Hey, I'm weeding by example." That's part of our landscape creed. We have a creed that we read every Monday morning. We also have now a merit medal that goes along with that, but leading by example. We actually pinned a guy today, our very first recipient of our Lead by Example award. And so that's a process they go through where they read a book, they do an interview, they interview a leader, they develop questions, all these things, but it's all about leading by example. And Kayat just embodied all that stuff. So yeah, great story there, Joel.
Yeah. And just one other thing is just the other example, like you did it seems like a field trip to the local library where, seeing where, hey, this is a place where we can learn a little bit, and like seeing your guys like, hey, getting their library cards, getting some audiobooks checked out, and just like that encouragement again, like you talked about earlier about, hey, we're going to watch something together, reflect on it, but then encouraging them to, hey, find some other things to read and grow and learn. And so that encouragement from you all to see, like, we're not just growing plants, like you said earlier, we're growing people. So I appreciated that. And, it's one of those things where I want to make sure, like, as teachers too, like, right. And again, teaching as a broad thing, like, hey, if we're reading things that might not necessarily be in our discipline or whatever, just like to show like, hey, we're growing, right? I'm learning to do this. I'm learning about this thing. I'm reading this book for fun and just, or I've learned this new skill, and just to show that, you know, to be that example, just like Kaya picking up the litter, like being the example of, hey, I'm growing too. And, you know, you talked about taking a class, like that you're being a good example of that as well. So I mean, that's all good stuff. That's all good, like teaching, that's showing that sort of that we're all growing.
And how do you end up stumbling upon answers and solutions that you subconsciously, you weren't even thinking about, but because you're helping somebody else, all of a sudden you've got an answer to one of yours. So when I took our guys to the library at the time, I didn't realize our library had a free audio download from Hoopla, right? We could download books from Hoopla. Yeah. And I'm like, are you serious? And I mean, Joel, I was checking out all 8 of my books every time.
Oh, yeah,
I'm a ferocious audio listener. I just love audiobooks. Joel, the worst day of my life is when our library quit doing Hoopla. I mean, it was.
I remember that too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's terrible. Yeah. And so now they've got these other ones that just, to me, don't work. They're not anything like Hoopla was. But anyway, yeah, just getting our guys engaged. But hearing the stories that come from that, when they tell you what they're reading, they're reading about Pat Riley and how to build a championship team. And I'm like, wow, that's a win. They're listening to how to build a team, how to grow better. And now that same guy, he started his own side hustle. He's selling toys and antiques online. I don't know where all he's doing, but apparently he's doing pretty good. I'm just like, I love that. He didn't just do his 8 to 5 job, but he's got a little side hustle going too. So that's great.
Awesome. Yeah, that is great. So having written the book, and again, being a little bit reflective, are you doing anything differently, like in working with your people, having written the book?
I always try to make it about them, and realizing as we have, one thing that still frustrates me is our turnover rate. And we're at the bottom of the pay scale. So I like to blame the pay scale a lot. That's my go-to whining, victimization. We just don't pay enough, and it may be true. It may be true, but I got to figure out, because we have about a 20% turnover every year. And so I find that I'm having, we're starting over with new people, and we're having to help them see how to become better, how to become a better person. So I always have to try to keep it about them and realizing where they are and where they're starting. So this week we'll do one of our leader to leader meetings. We'll actually do 2 of them. We'll break them into small groups. And whatever, like one of the ones last time was, I did a statement and I said, what does this mean? And it says, work smarter, not harder. Okay, Joel, I would assume everybody knows what that means. But they don't, right? So if you say that in a meeting, I need you guys to work smarter, not harder. Not everybody's on the same page with that, because some guys, and this has come out in the meetings, look at that as well, what I try to do is con you into doing your part, and while I sit back and just sort of slack off. And that's not what that means, right? It means to be more efficient, to do it quicker, or whatever, just to be smart about it and to think through it. And so it's good to talk about these things so that we get on the same page and we all understand that cultural language that every workplace has.
Well, yeah. And you saw that, I mean, there's a pretty good example in the book when you're talking about how long it took to mow the property. And you're like, hey, if by having this like garbage can in the middle of the grass, and we got to mow around it or back up and stuff like that, versus, hey, how about we strategically move some of these signs and garbage cans and stuff so we can have some clean lines when we're mowing, like, and you create an efficient space, like, hey, there's working smarter and not harder.
That's right. Lifting tree limbs up so that they're not hitting mower operators in the head as they're driving by, just a safety issue, but it's more efficient. It's working smarter, not harder. And we figured out how to try to keep our mowers from backing up. It sounds crazy, but when you back up, you're literally costing yourself time.
Yeah.
We went from mowing the campus in 10 days. It used to take us 10 working days to mow the entire campus. Joel, we've gotten it down as little as 3.5. It's probably more like 4 now, but we're mowing the campus in 4 days with fewer people, and we have more property. We have more grass than we had 21 years ago. But it's all about what you said. It's being efficient. It's changing the belief, and it's just getting people to work smarter, not harder. Yeah. And the pride, the sense of pride in it. We added this whole new part of our program called Landscape University, where it's training. It's a training class, but we let our staff teach other staff. It's not Jeff going out there doing it. It's me empowering them to teach others. And so that's been a big game changer. We've just gotten more efficient because guess who? We create PowerPoints and videos now. Guess who the stars are on those? Who are the people that are on those videos? We don't go out and buy these videos. We make them, and we put our people in there as the stars and the people who are the experts. And so that lifts them up as the teacher. Some of my worst people who were against me and fighting me have become my absolute best mentors and leaders in our whole department. I mean, guys I would have fired gladly 10, 15 years ago. I mean, no qualms. I just would have fired them. Just because of how much problems they caused, have now become, they were leaders then, but they were negative leaders. They didn't know how to harness. They didn't know how to harness that. Nobody had ever showed them. But that constant, it's like a plant. You feed it, you water it. If you're pouring gasoline on a plant, you're going to kill it. So, right, you got to put good water. You got to put good stuff in there. So we would give them a diet. And these folks hadn't had a good diet of mental food, right? They don't have that. They're listening to whatever's in their truck. They're listening to country music. And so, all their dogs are running away and they're getting divorces, right? So they're, you got to help break that cycle. So that's what going to the library does. That's what bringing in speakers does. That's what having them listen to TEDx talks does, taking them to conferences. It's all about growing people like you grow plants. You got to keep feeding them, keep watering them, and you got to be consistent. That's the hardest part, Joel. The easiest thing is once the problems start going away is to stop. Don't do it anymore. Hey, we don't have any drama right now, but we're clicking along great. And COVID hits, and that totally disrupts the way we do our work. So we had to figure out how to do this outside, get a mobile TV to get it outside, all that kind of stuff. But if you don't do it, what happens is the weeds really start growing again.
Right.
And it intermixes, and before you know it, you got that bad thinking again, and you got that contamination. So what we want to keep doing is tilling the garden, right? Keep working the plants, keep feeding them. And then we let them grow stronger. They'll outgrow the weeds. They'll get stronger and they'll blow through the weeds. So that's sort of been our trick and our magic.
I like how you pointed out that these people that you might have fired many years ago, they had influence though. They were leaders. They were, but then seeing about there's an asset there. Like, there's a healthy plant is there, just giving it the right food, giving it the right inputs. And so I for me, thinking to my own context, like with, students, like, you see students that have influence on their groups and stuff like that, but it might be, in that direction that's not quite conducive to good learning of mathematics, for example, or learning how to teach mathematics. And so how do you then bring them on the team? How do you get them? Maybe they haven't been listened to, maybe they haven't had, and giving them a little bit of leadership, giving them the opportunity to influence what's going on. All of a sudden now you flip that into an asset. That's a great learning right there.
And when they take that to the next level, they take it to the community, they take it to their family, they take it home with them, and you start seeing that affect the next generation. I'll tell you just a little small thing is the university provides a pension for our team, but nobody ever tells them that on the side they can have another retirement. They can have a Roth plan, and they can put as little as $5 a paycheck in there.
Yeah.
Well, when they started realizing they could do this, and we were showing them what they could do, that they could, at the end of 30 years, you could have a pretty decent nest egg.
Yeah.
And besides your pension. And it's like, wow, hey, be the tortoise in the race. Just keep being persistent. The tortoise always wins.
Yeah.
And so that's just a little part of it. But some of our leaders who were negative started seeing that. And I'm telling you, some of those little things helped change their whole perspective on life, is that they saw opportunities were coming. So I thought it was kind of cool.
Yeah, that is cool. So, Jeff, if you were going to make the second edition of Growing Leaders into Leaders, what any changes you would make? What's something that you would put into that second edition that you didn't get in that first edition?
Well, it's funny because the first draft was 80,000 words plus, and the final draft ended up being about 25,000 words. So apparently there's 2 books still in that draft. So I like the stories of telling the success of our team and how they've seen the changes. I mean, I try to keep a notebook just of the success stories, and I see how they've embraced a different mindset and don't let fear stop them. I mean, we had one guy. I won't go into that. You didn't ask me that. So I would add more stories. I think I have gotten my second book written, which is called Tailgate Huddles.
Oh, okay.
It's all about changing culture, and so it's made. They're 1-page chapters, and they're made so that teams in the green industry is where I targeted. They can just have a 2 to 5 minute conversation in the morning about some type of incident. There's like a case study or just a fictional story, and you read it, and then there's 2 questions, and it's to hopefully have what we have created in Leader to Leader, is that short conversation about whatever's happened in that story. So the word may be dependability. Let's talk about it. So we put it in a story and then let the team talk about it. What does it mean to be dependable? Right. And some of these things come out like, well, yeah, you come to work, if you are sick, you call in. And it's these little life lessons that we all take for granted, but a lot of our teams didn't grow up with that. And so it's just another way to help reinforce that, I guess you would say, character that's important in a person's life.
Yeah, that's awesome. So is that available, that Tailgate?
It's not available yet. It's Tailgate Huddles, but it's going to the publishers. We got finished with our draft part of it, and so we're going there. I think Jeff McManus is the problem right now. He just hasn't. I'm using my master's class that I'm taking right now as my excuse.
There you go.
Online class. So when I get through with it this week, that's my next focus.
Well, we'll have show notes for this episode, but so we'll post a link to the book and a link to your website. And I know that eventually when that book is ready, it'll be available there. Eventually.
Yes, I hope so.
Very good. So were you able to think about summing up in 7 words or less? So it's a challenge sometimes.
That was one of the favorite questions that you had. So
nice.
The thing, I liked was grow people like you grow plants. And that was my 6 words.
Nice.
Grow people like you grow plants.
I like it.
And most people know that. I mean, it's not a fast process. It's not a microwave. It's a slow process. Yeah.
Yeah. I saw a colleague was posted on social media. They grew some sunflowers, some seed, and you could see them. They're like, oh wow, that's a big plant. Not nearly as big as it will be, but they've spent some time. They've put some care into that plant, and so that's a good. I like that.
He didn't forget about it. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah. No, I was just going to say, growing leaders into leaders starts with people. I mean that, or relationships, whichever way you want to put it. But I mean that's definitely a message I got out of the book.
Yeah. Zig Ziglar says you can get everything in life you want if you'll just help enough other people get what they want. And when I look at that in my career, what I needed a beautiful campus, right? That was part of what I was charged to do, a beautiful campus. But what did my people want? They needed to feel worth. They needed to feel value. They needed to feel appreciated, respected. And how do I do that? How do I create that? And so that's what I worked on, is valuing them, building them up. And people, when you read Daniel Pink's book, Drive, he talks about 3 motivations that really drive people in the workplace: purpose, autonomy, and what was the third one? Purpose, autonomy, and mastery. Thank you, mastery. So we try to hit all 3 of those levels. Give them purpose. Look who you're recruiting. Look what you do, worldwide. Autonomy. We've given them a lot. Once they trained, there's a lot of directions they can go with that. So their days, believe it or not, they have a lot of autonomy. And then mastery, we created this Landscape University program so that they become masters. When they get those stars on their name in each class, and they get a magnet for their locker, that makes them the master of what we're doing. So that's what I'm trying to hit to get them motivated. And so it goes back to that quote: you can get everything in life you want if you'll help enough other people get what they want.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Yeah.
And 2 quick ones. What is the best thing you do to help your teaching? You might have already touched on it, but just anything that you're like, hey, this has been a really nice little thing that I've been able to do.
Well, I don't know. To me, stay learning. I mean, you hit it earlier. Be a learner, stay curious. I mean, what's harder for me now that I'm, becoming the old guy in the room, right? I'm no longer the young gun. I'm the older guy, is that you got to listen to young guns like you, Joel. I mean, you're a lot younger than me. And so I got to learn. And so that was a paradigm shift for me, is to respect, listen, and learn, right? I don't care what age they are, but especially a guy like you who's gone through the training. What to me, that's important. That's important that you've done all that, and you've got all the degrees and all that. But what brings more credibility for me about you is that you're teaching it, and you're teaching it over and over again. So you're having to go through the challenges. You're going through apathy. You're going through the people who quote, these are air quotes, think they know more than you do. And you're dealing with all that. And that puts you, so I can learn from you. Because when you speak, you're not just speaking from what you read, you're speaking from what you have actually experienced and trying to apply and help other people learn as well. And that to me speaks a lot of volume. That speaks a big volume, to what you're doing.
Oh, thank you, Jeff. But I mean, again, I like that you said that idea that keep learning, to keep that hunger. And you talk about the master's class, and I know we've had a lot of exchanges where all of a sudden, I get an email from you, are you going to this webinar? And stuff we're always trying to grow, and that's a great sign. And for any teacher, always trying to learn, even though I got 3 kids in, I'm still I can learn a lot about parenting. I can still learn a lot about parenting. So we can all keep learning. That's awesome. Anything to promote, Jeff? Besides, again, we'll have a link to the for people that are looking to buy the book, Growing Leaders into Leaders, Leadership Lessons from the Ground Level. We'll have that on the website. We'll have a link to your website. Anything else that we can promote out there?
Well, I do, now that COVID's sort of, going away and speaking is opening up, I'm getting more and more speaking opportunities, live events. I'm doing Zoom still, but that's always fun. So for those who may be looking for a keynote speaker, hey, give me a call. Let's see if I'm a good fit. I won't take every one of them because I may not be the right fit for you. But I'd love to have that conversation if after they heard this podcast and they want to talk more. That's something that's real fun for me. I enjoy doing that.
Awesome. Yeah, great way for folks to invest in their teams. I know you've got a lot of abilities to help them grow, help them all grow. So there you go. Well, thank you, Jeff. I appreciate your time and appreciate you being willing to be on this episode of the podcast. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Joel. Thanks for doing this and investing your time into others. And thanks for allowing me to be here today.
Awesome. Thank you. There we go. There's Jeff McManus and talking about turning weeders into leaders. And so love the title of the book, love the conversation, and hopefully you did as well. And so that is about all we have for this episode of the Amidon Planet podcast. Show notes for the podcast can be found at amidonplanet.com/episode 46. Now, if you're looking for ways to support the podcast, which we greatly appreciate, I mean, already you've listened, so already you've been supporting. But if you're looking for other ways, you can subscribe to the podcast wherever you get podcasts so that the latest episode is always available available whenever you're ready to listen. That always helps us. Rate or review the podcast through your podcast provider. That makes it a little bit more visible to the next person that's looking for similar content. You can subscribe to the Amazon Planet Download, which contains resources and updates from Amazon Planet. We've been talking recently about the No Guilt Book Club. I'm going to have some updates and some things going on with the No Guilt Book Club, specifically related to this podcast feed. So anyway, pay attention to that. That'll be coming out through the download and through this podcast feed. So stay tuned. You can also follow at Amazon Planet on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, or like the Amazon Planet Facebook page. You can also check out the Amazon Planet store or Amazon Planet bookshop. Links in the footer at AmazonPlanet.com, where all of your purchases support the production costs of the podcast. So, in conclusion, thank you for listening to this episode of the Amazon Planet podcast. Thanks to Jeff McManus for sharing his expertise and his book. Thanks to Matt Mifflin for the music in this episode. And finally, thank you to all of you out there who are seeking to teach better and be the good in the world by investing in the lives of others. This world is a better place because you have decided to use the gifts you've been given to serve others. Thank you for all that you do.